Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Elizabeth Anderson Hoagland, and I'm with the Kentucky Department for Public Health. And today's webinar, which I am recording, is I will not be giving the presentation, but it's going to be about our services through Quit Now Kentucky and the new services for the lung cancer screening component. And who I have with us today is Dave Woodruff. He is our account manager with National Jewish Hospital, which is the provider for our quitline services. He's going to be giving us what is hopefully a really interesting overview of the services that are provided. And I say hopefully because it all sort of depends on if I gave him permission to share, like I hope I did. So we might have to give me a moment to fiddle with the controls.
Elizabeth, it looks like I have it now. I can't share my video, so I guess you can't see my hair all nice and neat. But if you want, if you give me video chair, I can put my face on the screen too. But if not, let me go ahead and start sharing the presentation. So
that is so odd. One of my coworkers was having trouble with video today too, and I don't know why. While I poke at the controls, I will say real quick for anyone who is listening, please feel free to ask any questions in the question and answer button at the bottom, and we will get to those at the end. All right, I'll turn that over to you now, Dave.
All right, now I am going to do my best to get this presentation up, so bear with me just a minute while I share this screen. So can everyone, maybe I'll just ask Elizabeth, can you see okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
See if that button helps.
I'm sorry?
I said I just pushed another button, so hopefully maybe it will let you share your screen now.
Oh, it says I'm sharing. Can you see my screen?
I can see your screen, yes.
Okay, okay. Oh, you're talking my video?
Yeah.
Oh, let me find out. Hold on, I got to go back over there. It's technology 101 for us today. Hold on. Oh, can you see me?
There you are.
Hey, there I am. Okay. All right. Well, I think we're afternoon there, right? So good afternoon to everybody. As Elizabeth mentioned, my name's Dave Woodruff. I am the account manager with National Jewish Health, kind of overseeing the Kentucky contract. And so today I'm going to go over pretty much an overview of the entire quitline program, and the pieces that we have there in the Commonwealth, but really with an emphasis on our newest edition in Kentucky, which is lung cancer screening, because I think that's kind of what everybody's kind of looking forward to. So certainly we'll have time at the end for questions, so I might not be paying attention to the chat, but we'll definitely have time at the end so we can kind of go over everything at once, and hopefully some of the slides will answer some of your questions. So first of all, about National Jewish, it's actually National Jewish Health. It's actually a small but mighty, I like to call it mighty hospital, located here in Denver, Colorado, nestled up into the mountains. Well, maybe not quite. The tobacco cessation part of our program is run through our health initiatives department within the hospital. NJH was founded over 120 years ago in 1899. So it was founded primarily to combat the tuberculosis epidemic at the time, but really had a primary focus on the homeless population that existed here in Colorado and really around the country, because a lot of folks came in to get treatment. The official motto at that time: none may enter who can pay, none can pay who enter. So truly like a nonprofit, obviously funded a lot through grants. Certainly has changed over the years, and we certainly don't turn away people who can pay, but we still rely heavily on grants and on our research. So it's truly remained as a nonprofit organization here. Over the last 25 years, we've been ranked either 1 or 2. It's that kind of that horse race type situation in pulmonology and lung cancer and lung surgery by U.S. News and World Report. Really, truly proud of that over the last couple of years. And as a nonprofit research hospital, all the money that we earn is reinvested into research and enhancement into our services. So our quitline, or about the quitline partners, NGH offers sensation services in 24 states. 3 of those we support through our My Life, My Quit, which is our young adult or youth program. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But the others have a full complement of our services to support the residents. I have to add this in because we're very excited. It's something fairly new. We're excited that we're going to be launching a standalone program of our American Indian commercial tobacco program in July of this year. So it's the first time we've launched that as a standalone program. So we're really excited about that coming up. So have to kind of get that plug in there. The Quitline services was developed and launched here at National Jewish back in 2002. And in supporting those 24 states across the United States, we are currently the largest nonprofit provider of telephone-based tobacco cessation services. But I'll tell you, even with that scope, we're still a relatively small team. You'd be surprised sometimes, but we're all truly devoted to enhancing the programs that support the participants and the residents of states that we serve. Our program is 100% evidence-based. With us being directly connected to a research hospital, we really couldn't find it any other way. So everything we do, everything we try to put in place, we've built in that evidence. So we kind of make sure that it's going to be a successful program for the residents of the states. Our participant quit rates are almost 50%, which is the highest in the country, and we are constantly, and lung cancer screening is certainly one of them, ways to enhance the program to increase that number. And while we haven't hit McDonald's numbers yet, we are very proud to have assisted over 2 million people with their quit attempts over the years. Our program, our staff, we have 90 devoted staff members that kind of help to support the residents of all the states, the 21 states that we offer, plus some corporate clients as well. The largest group of them are our coaches, and they have, believe it or not, a minimum of a bachelor's degree, and even some of them have masters. But I will tell you, even with that level of education, we still have them complete more than 150 hours of training, and that's really to equip them and helping the participants throughout their quit journey. And as we talk about some of those programs that we have put in place in the protocols, there's even additional training that helps us support the participants in those programs that the coaches will receive as well. All of this training and all of our material is regularly reviewed and updated. We both have a clinical director and a medical director that does that, and they work in tandem to kind of make sure that we have the most updated information available. So our program features several components. Our largest reach, of course, comes through phone interactions with our tobacco treatment specialists, the coaches. But coupled with that, we have a suite of digital services that will include texting and email outreach. All of the participants receive educational material as they go through their quit journey, which we'll talk through in just a bit. And eligible participants can also, receive free NRT, which is delivered directly to their door. And again, we'll talk about the free NRT program that we have. But again, the benefit there is it goes directly to their house. Don't have to go down to the Walmart or the pharmacy to pick it up. It's right there for them. Phone coaching, of course, is available Monday through Sunday, so 7 days a week. And all online resources are available 24/7. But I'll also point out that our text and chat services are also available 24/7 as well. So our process. So the process a participant will go through, it will always start with an intake. We're going to talk about how we get a lot of those through provider referrals a little bit later on, but the intake could either be from a provider that sends us the patient or the participant information, or it could be a self referral. So the participant can call in and initiate the intake process, or they can go through the website and then we would return their call and go through it with them as well. So that intake process, I'm going to point this out as well as we kind of talk through this. That is an important step in our lung cancer screening program, because again, I know that's where we're going to be getting to at the end here, but the lung cancer screening program protocol is really started in that intake to the questions that they're asked. So they are identifying their PAC year history and so forth. And again, we'll talk about that a little bit further. We then, of course, get them enrolled in the program. Well, at least that's our hope. We get them their materials that we'll talk about in a little bit, but a lot of that is that welcome kit, any kind of very specific from education materials on the protocol that they might be going through, or kind of their something to help them with their journey specifically. We'll then get them into coaching. Now, a lot of times that intake call and that coaching call, the first one at least, we're trying to kind of put together. So if the participant calling in has time as we talk to them, or if we outreach them, if they have time when we reach them, we're going to try to get them right over to a coach to really start that process with them. So that first coaching call, it's critical because we want to get them engaged in the program. Then we will schedule additional calls. So through, they are eligible to receive a total of 5 coaching calls in our base program. And those coaching calls are going to be scheduled with the participant as the time goes on. But again, getting them into that first one is important. We will certainly make the outreach later if they don't have time, but we do try to kind of keep them on the phone. So sometimes it can take it'll be a lengthy first call, but hopefully it's rewarding to the participant as they kind of start that journey with us. NRT is also ordered through this process. It comes in, and we'll talk about their eligibility, but we will go ahead and place that order with them after, having that kind of talk with them to see what best suits their needs, whether it's patch, gum, or lozenge, and get that out to them, so they can start that journey with them. And then the last piece here that I'll also point out are outcomes. So outcomes reports through this process are going to be sent to the referral. They are, again, we'll get into a little bit, but they can either come in through a fax or fax or email. But if we have an e-referral system in place, they can also be transmitted that way. As we talk about lung cancer screening, that is also going to notify them, or those outcomes reports will notify the provider that they were eligible for lung cancer screening and kind of what steps we have. But they will receive those outcomes reports from us. They do kind of look more like clinical notes. We've kind of revamped them to kind of mirror other types of notes that the providers receive. But they are going to be triggered at certain intervals throughout the process, typically time-based, but also going to be event-based. So when the participant begins their journey, they'll get an outcome. If they end their journey, whether they've dropped out of the program or they've successfully quit, they'll also get something, and then they'll get pieces along the way. So we kind of try to make sure that those providers are engaged throughout the process. Our digital service. So the digital services, obviously we have our telephone coaching, but it's also supplemented with a variety of different digital services. And we do find in a lot of ways that when they layer on the different services, the participant will have a much better success rate at quitting. They're getting it from different places. But if you hadn't had a chance, certainly could, kind of want to encourage you to go out and check check out the website. It is very mobile friendly, and it is available in English and Spanish. It's a really quick toggle. It's right at the top that toggles the screens directly into an English or a Spanish language version. There is interactive online resources, of course, through the website. And the participant can also sign up or consent to receiving motivational texting and email messaging to help them in their journey. And then we also have some pieces in place where they can get system triggers, such as quit dates and appointment reminders that will get sent out to them. Again, as we talk about some ways that they can get referred to us, we do need to have consent, but we can start that process right away through that referral that we receive from the provider as well. And there is also a two-way chat available online as well. As I mentioned, we have the education materials that will be sent out. Now, the education materials will primarily be sent out through the mail. They would reach the participant typically within a week. But if we receive an email address, or the participant has an email address, everything can be sent out via email as well. And of course, all of this material that we'll talk about is going to go out in English or Spanish, depending on the participant's preference. But it really is going to involve a welcome kit. We do have the My Quit Journey workbook, which is industry renowned. And they will receive that to help them through the journey. And again, as I mentioned, they'll also receive that additional education content that's going to be a little more specified for them. Again, we'll see it. It's going to be for things like if they are cigarette smokers, or they're pipe smokers, or they do vape. or they're going through the pregnancy protocol. So different pieces like that will get a little more tailored to what the participant's going through. And this next slide will have some examples of those. So as you can see, that's kind of the example of the participant welcome letter that they would receive. But then the additional examples will have smokeless tobacco, stress and tobacco use, understanding vape. Again, if they're going through our behavioral health protocol or our pregnancy protocol, they'll receive a little more specific information to those programs as well. So those are all available that they would receive throughout their journey. And again, if we don't have an email address, we will mail it. If we do have an email address, we'll send that out through the digital means through email. Now, specific in Kentucky, all Kentucky residents, regardless of age, are eligible to participate in the program, meeting the coaching calls. We don't turn anybody away, and they can engage with us at any time, as I mentioned, 24/7. NRT availability, and that is nicotine replacement therapy. That eligibility is a little more specified. So we have partnered, of course, with select county health departments, so that the NRT is opened up to those residents, Medicare participants, uninsured, and the behavioral health protocol participants also can receive free NRT through this program. If they are not eligible to receive NRT through this program, we then, through the coaching sessions, will certainly highly encourage them to reach out to their commercial insurance, their private insurance, to talk about any kind of the free NRT or cost NRT, whatever that case might be, to see what kind of benefits they have towards that smoking cessation program. So a little bit more about the NRT, the nicotine replacement therapy. Of course, we know through that evidence-based research that the NRT really does increase a participant's chances of success when they combine it with that coaching, and specifically the telephone coaching. Obviously, for our youth program, and not My Life, My Quit, but more the young adult, we do allow that through a online version as well. But so that does count towards coaching. So we are trying to engage them in some way, and coupled with that NRT that they're using, that definitely has increased, or will increase, their success rate. Participants, of course, need to be at least 18 years of age, and there is eligibility screening encouraged during that intake. So a lot is going on during that intake process and through our demographic questions that we're asking to ensure that they're not only 18 years of age, but they're also medically eligible. We do have MD consent forms. So if somebody comes through, for instance, if there is somebody who is currently pregnant, they do feel that they should have NRT, there is a medical consent form that we will then provide back to the referral to their doctor, who then would send it back to us so that we can provide that. So it is under a doctor's care at that point. But if we don't have that, we would not provide it if they reach those certain criteria. NRT, as I mentioned, I think is shipped within 1 to 2 business days directly to the participant's home. So they're not getting a voucher to go out anything, to get it or anything. It's coming right to them. Also mention it is a brand name. It is not packaged the same as what you'd see in a local grocery store or whatnot, but it is a brand name. We do not use the generic versions. And within Kentucky, the Medicare and uninsured can receive, I should say, a total of 8 weeks of NRT, and that is sent in 2-week shipments. So they get the 2 weeks, and that's really to encourage that engagement for a longer period of time with the coach. So we want to make sure that we're coupling not just NRT, but that coaching, that interaction that they're having with that coach to get through that quit journey. Their NRT and eligibility is then reset every 12 years. So if they do have an unsuccessful quit journey, we can then re-engage them in that process after a year, and get them back on that path of getting that NRT and having go through. And again, as I mentioned, the coaches certainly highly encourage the participants who have private insurance to call their insurance for any kind of further NRT support through their process. So how do we get these referrals? How do they come into us? As I mentioned, we can certainly have a participant call us or go through the website to self-refer. But for the providers, they go through really 3 different ways. The first here being a fax referral. This is obviously available on the website, on the QuitLogix Kentucky website. they can, certainly download this, and it is a, something that gets filled out. Obviously, we want to make sure that we've got all that patient information and that it's valid. Name, phone number, consent to contact. If we don't have some of those pieces, or if we have the incorrect number, we're just not going to be able to contact the member or the participant. So we want to make sure that all of that information is in place so that we have that successful first touch with the referral, and they're not just sitting around waiting for us. In order for us to be able to send back those progress notes, we would then need to have that provider information. So that's where that importance comes in. So we want to make sure that the provider information or the entity information is completed so that we can get the progress notes or those outcomes reports back to the provider. We do send those via fax or secure email. If we have an email, we'll send it that way. If we have a fax, we'll send it that way. It's really a preference at that point. Obviously, emails kind of do save a little bit of paper and time, but we will send it either way. And then the patient, it is on this form. There is a section where the patient can consent to receiving those text messages on the referral. So again, if you're engaging with the patient and they are consenting to an email or to a text, then we can start right away by sending those text reminders that, hey, here we come and we're ready to talk to you, type of a thing. So we cannot send them a text, obviously, until we have that type of consent. Also, as I mentioned on the NRT side, if they are pregnant or breastfeeding at that point, there is a spot where the provider can select if they can get NRT or they've consented to get the NRT. So we don't have to worry about it later on. We'll have that right here on this form. Excuse me. So this has got a little graphic there that goes in. There we go. So the next piece is a provider web referral. Again, this is if you go to the website and you're onto the how to refer a patient type of thing. This will come up right away. I've got part of it here, but it's a little bit longer because it's certainly going to have the participant information, but it is really quite easy to use. It utilizes a lot of drop-down menus to hopefully save a little bit of time when you're entering it. And again, the progress notes on this form, along with the other form, are sent via fax or secure email. Benefits here, obviously, is that this is being transmitted directly into our system. So there is very little human error when it comes to data entry, at least on our side. We're not going to have somebody that's reading a fax and trying to push in the information into our system. It's getting directly loaded in. And obviously, even with that, there's a time savings as well. So this is entering into our system immediately while a fax is going to come in, and then somebody's going to have to pull that fax and put it in. It's still fairly quick. It's still within 24 hours, but it's that little bit of extra time that we have to get on top of things. Patient consents to email, or I'm sorry, to text is on this form as well, as we just kind of mentioned. And of course, I don't have to mention, or at least I hope I don't have to mention, in our evergreening world, going through this provider web referral on the online system certainly cuts down on our paper usage, which certainly will help to save our environment every little bit. The last system that we have in place, and you might or might not have this in all areas, but this is an e-referral. There's a lot of IT involvement in this, and I will be honest, I am not in IT, and nor do I play an IT specialist on TV. So there might be some wording here that I don't know if I can answer, but it is not the same as a e-fax. What it basically is, and I'll try to kind of explain in my words, in your electronic health record, it is a button or like a hyperlink that will allow you to kind of upload the information, and that gets sent over to us. Since it's through a HISP or the Health Information Service Provider system, and we are a HIPAA covered entity, and we use HISP. The PHI exposure is non-existent for us. So it is a direct link for that provider or that patient information to come directly to us. It is a one-time setup fee from us. So we will assist in getting that set up. If the provider wants to have that set up, we'll certainly help with that. But there is a one-time setup fee. And then of course the maintenance further on is covered under that one fee. So there's no additional charges after that. If you the referral is using this provider link, this e-referral link, progress notes, so those outcomes reports, are then sent back, as we just talked about, time-based or event-based. but they're sent back through the system. They're not a fax or an email. They're going directly back into the system. And we do test that before we launch completely. We will test that to ensure that everything is working properly before we go live. So let's talk a little bit about the programs themselves, or excuse me, at least the specialty programs. The first being our pregnancy and postpartum program that we offer there in Kentucky. So this is actually a little bit of an expanded program from our base program. It actually includes a total of 9 coaching calls. There are 5 that will occur during the pregnancy itself, and then 4 that come postpartum. So it is really trying to make sure that that participant is engaged. It's so important, you know, that the mother's not smoking during the pregnancy, and then of course we want to help them get through it on the postpartum side. And by doing that, we're also dedicating a female quitline coach to work with that participant throughout the program. One thing I will say is they are always welcome to call us. If they reach a point where hey, I really need that, they can call us, you know, 24/7, but they might not receive that same coach. So the coach is going to be able, that dedicated coach would be there on scheduled calls, but they might not be available if they are just calling in. But we do try to kind of mirror those folks up so that they feel comfortable in calling. Little caveat here, they do need to be currently pregnant. So it cannot be that they are thinking about getting pregnant. They actually do need to be pregnant in order to enroll in the program. And as I mentioned on the education material, they will receive tailored text messages and emails throughout the program, more designed towards that pregnancy and postpartum experience. This particular program does have incentives built in. So we are incentivizing those participants to complete the program. So they are getting $20 during their pregnancy. So the first 5 calls, they could receive $20 per call. So that's what, $100 if they complete those calls, for each call they complete. And during the postpartum section, they are getting $30 per call. And what we found is 44% have made a quit attempt during the program. And then 68% of the participants who complete at least 3 calls, if not more, during the pregnancy, and 3 calls or more during postpartum, have remained quit at least 6 months follow-up. Now, we don't have specific numbers, I should say, to Kentucky, because unfortunately the response rates that we get normally on evaluations is a little lower. However, we have evaluated the program like program-wide, so across all of the states that are participating, and these are those kind of numbers that we're seeing. So we're very encouraged with some of those numbers that come out of the program. The next piece, kind of talked about a little bit before, but this is My Life, My Quit, and this is specific to the youth program. So this is really for those younger age folks, and primarily they're going to be vaping, that are really that 12 to 17-year-old group. And I don't know about you, but I've got 2 teenagers in my home, and they definitely think differently than the rest of us. So this is a little more tailored to that population. Because it uses a lot more texting, and of course we've redesigned the website itself. We see a lot of these participants engaging in text much more than they engage in the phone calls. They are certainly welcome to call. We do offer the 5 coaching sessions, whether that's by phone, text, or online chat, and it is by, again, a very specific youth coach. So it's not dedicated like the pregnancy protocol, but it's they've had that additional training so that they are able to engage and I guess maybe have a little bit of a thought process like that teenager who thinks they're going to live forever. So they are definitely much more tailored to be able to help those. We do have a much simplified registration and intake process for these folks. We do not ask really any medical demographic questions, with the exception of asthma. That is the one piece where that we are kind of asking, just to kind of have that in the record. Important to note, as we develop this program, we really truly engage with the youth in order to understand kind of what would speak more to them. So the youth, this whole youth program was designed and developed by youth participants. I'll also point out is that we do have a young adult program, which is a young adult, as opposed to the youth program. Young adult is 18 to 24. Very, very similar to this. They actually use the same short code, that 36072 number, in order to engage. So they're very similar design here. And we do that because of marketing. So as we're into the high schools or into the community organizations that are dealing with the youth population, they don't have to worry about, oh, well, are you 18, are you 17? They can go through the same session. Big difference here is that the young adults are eligible for NRT because they're over 18. So that's why, we do want to kind of keep them engaged. We want to keep them engaged in a lot of ways, the same way as the youth, but they do get that extra benefit in there too. Next, we have our behavioral health protocol. This was, and just to give you a little historic, this was originally kind of put out there back in 2017 to 2018, but we redid it a little later on. But we originally launched this with really looking at 3 behavioral health disorders: anxiety, depression, and bipolar. So those 3 were original. We went back and we re-looked at it, so we relaunched it after that. And we included, or we increased that up to 7 total. Schizophrenia disorder, ADHD, PTSD, and substance use disorder were all then incorporated into the program after we revised it back then. This is an expanded 7-call program, so it's a little bit more than, again, our base program. There are a couple pieces that are certainly different at this point, but it is much more intensive intervention to help them to be successful through their journey. The coaches, again, are getting that more specialized training on behavioral health conditions, and specifically on the ones that we're talking about, helping them to work through developing social support, relaxation techniques, behavioral alternatives to smoking, things like that. Certainly are things that we're covering and giving or equipping those coaches to be able to kind of talk to the participant in a little more depth. In addition to that, we've also have a combination NRT therapy that we provide to the behavioral health participants. And that's where they're receiving both patch and gum or lozenge at the same time. So just to kind of put that out there, a patch, for instance, when you put it on your shoulder or wherever, that takes a little bit to kick in. By having that gum or by having that lozenge, that's a quick hit. So it helps to ease through until the patch kind of quicks in. And in addition to that, if the participant is having that, stress moment, they can pop that gum or lozenge at the same time. So it's that combination therapy that kind of helps them get through some of those highs and lows. In addition to that, in addition to everything on the screen here, one thing our coaches are also equipped to do is they work a little more directly with the participants' doctors to help them support the participant through the program, kind of making sure that they're not getting that, I don't want to say wrong advice, but getting that advice to go to have a cigarette. They want to make sure that we're having that hand in hand kind of conversation with the participant, that we want to get them off of cigarettes as quickly as can. So now I'm sure this is what you all have been waiting for. We have our lung cancer screening program that we just launched. So as of April 1st, Kentucky went live with the lung cancer screening protocols. We are very excited for that. Overall, the program was actually twofold. The goals of the program, I should say, was twofold. One, we want to make sure we are increasing awareness of our resource package that was available. And 2, to identify and connect eligible callers to information to educate them about lung cancer screening services and resources. So in order to get to those goals, we developed 3 strategies. We're going to talk a little bit more about them in a second here. But really, as you can see, the 3 goals really for that we were looking to develop: to identify callers as they were calling in that are eligible, and then provide those resources through that initial conversation we were having. Second, to engage with the participants through text and email outreach when applicable. And the third was to embed the information specific to lung cancer screening directly on the Kentucky QuitLogic's website, so that anybody who goes to the Kentucky QuitLogic site will have a much more tailored approach to lung cancer screening protocols in their state. So our first step here is obviously on to the identification. So the participant is identified. I think I mentioned, but I'm sure I could certainly mention again. it is determined in that first intake process as they're asking those questions in the intake process. They are looking, or what we're trying to determine is their PAC year history. Currently, what we're looking at for a qualification, and I say currently because certainly it could change. As we again, we're evidence based, so if we feel that it might be better if it's a little bit younger or older, we'll do that. But we'll certainly talk to everybody. But right now, we're looking between 50 and 80 years of age with a 20 PAC year history of smoking. If we identify those folks within that group, we will then ask them their permission. We'll look for their consent to give them additional information about lung cancer screening. If they consent, now I also put out to kind of point out that I do have on this screen lungcancerscreening.health website. That is actually the base unit. So that's kind of the overarching. Because Kentucky did sign on for all 3 protocols, there is actually a very specific Kentucky website that we will give them. But if they consent, they will be provided that information through that intake process. We will direct them to the Kentucky website, which I actually have that link in a second here. But if not, if we didn't have it all the way through, at least we will get them to this site. It's lungscreen.health website, where they can see a lot of information. There's also the video that you can kind of see there, you can click on. And then there's some different interactive type of tools that are there. Our second piece here was on the email and the text and the email outreach. So again, if the participant consents that they want to receive the text and or email, they would receive this. Then that gives them that that extra. So it's not that they have to write it down on the call. If they're consenting to to receive the information, we will go ahead and send the email. So they will have the information when they get home, or maybe later on over the weekend, or whenever they have time to really go and explore that, and they won't have it scratched down on a piece of paper that potentially they could lose. So here you can see that the text that we would send them through email, and then the other one that we would send through a text message, and this is directing them directly, and the other one would have as well. If we were talking to the agent or the participant on the phone, the agent would certainly direct them to lungscreen.health/email Kentucky. So it's very specific, but it is specific to the Kentucky site. And again, they would get that email and or text. And so they don't have to, again, write it down and forget it later on. So they have it right there. The last piece, which, it's quite interesting. And again, I encourage you to take a look at it. But the final aspect of our lung cancer screening process was to embed the information directly into the lung cancer screening website for lung cancer screening. So a lot of information came as we worked with MD Anderson to create a much more state-specific page that was loaded directly on the Kentucky QuitLogic's website. Again, highly encourage you to go check it out. You can click on the link. If you're right on the homepage, there's a link that's going to sit there. It's about in the middle of the page that brings you over to that second piece screenshot there, the screen capture, where you can view videos, and there's also some other interactive tools that you can use. I will tell you, I am an ex-smoker. Shame on me. Quit about 9 years ago, so I'm happy about that. But there is if you are an ex-smoker, and hopefully it is X, there is information there that you can go through and select your personal history and your personal journey, and we'll give you that resource. It will tell you kind of where you're standing in that lung cancer screening realm, kind of what your odds are, type of thing. So it's a little telling, and it is obviously a much more personalized. And then finally, I also just mentioned that anytime we have this lung cancer screening eligibility, if the participant is eligible for lung cancer screening or any of this information, we are going to report that back to the provider through those outcomes reports. So they are engaged, so they know that, hey, we went ahead and did this for the participant. So I think that's the end of our slide deck. So I'm on to our last one. So I think at this point, we can take any questions if you guys have any, and maybe there were some already in the chat. I'm not sure. Let me go into it.
Thank you so much. For those of you on here live, I did put the link to quitnowkentucky.org in the chat. So go ahead and look at that if you've never looked at it before. I've had 2 questions come through so far. One was asking about vaping and if the service is available for people who use e-cigarettes, and what type of materials are specifically about e-cigarettes and vaping.
Yes, yes. So it's any tobacco product is what we're looking for. And so yes, if somebody is currently vaping with tobacco use, because you can use vapes for other things, right? But if it is specific on tobacco, we will certainly engage them in the same protocol as we do with others. And there is, yes, there is tailored information. So part of that intake process is going to include questions about what type of tobacco product you're using. And then we will tailor the information going out to the participant on that particular usage. So yes, we do look at because again, keep in mind, vaping or your ENDS units for tobacco cessation is not approved by the FDA, so we do not approve of that. If it helps, it helps, but we are trying to get them off of tobacco altogether. So we do view that in the same realm as cigarettes or pipe or any other tobacco product. Does that help?
Yes, yes. And in Kentucky, it is still tobacco products. I know in Colorado, it's a little bit different. And then we had a question about referrals to the quitline.
Yeah.
So the person sending in a referral, does it have to be a medically licensed provider, such as APRN or a MD, or do they accept referrals from registered nurses or from health educators, social workers?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So on the website itself, and I didn't go into it, there is a CBO there. So there's a HIPAA covered entity form and a non-HIPAA covered entity form. So I guess I'll talk a little bit more about CBOs. And so, yeah, RN, if it's a referral base, if it's a provider, that type of piece, that's one entity, right? They're HIPAA covered, they're good. It's really coming into those outcomes reports that are coming back out. On the other side is CBOs, so your community organizations that might be referring. There is a specific form that they can link over to for a non-HIPAA covered entity. And so that it's slightly different, and certainly we're not going to re-engage them, but it's not going to ask, and really we try not to ask a lot of specific health industry or health information in the questionnaire that you are sending in or the referral sending in. That will come more into the intake process. So we identify the protocols that they would be aligned with within the intake process. But I think, yeah, to answer the question, yeah, we'll accept a referral from anybody because we want to get these folks getting going. But as far as what's on the website, there's two different versions. There is the HIPAA covered entity and a non-HIPAA covered entity referral form.
That is incredibly helpful and
Yeah.
very important information. So I've got a couple questions. I'm going to go a little bit out of order, just so no one is worried I'm skipping them. It was part of the intake. Do we ask how callers have heard about the quitline, and what is the primary way that they learn about this service?
I will be honest, I don't know what the answer is to the second part of the question offhand. I can certainly find out and get that to Elizabeth. But yes, currently, if I recall right, they're in the Kentucky intake, because it is tailored by state, but in the Kentucky website, or in Kentucky intake process, there is a question specific on how they heard about the service. And I think we are going to keep that in there. So yes, we can pull that information. It's there. I just don't have the answer to the second part. Sorry.
From what I remember, healthcare providers is one of our top referrals, and the other one is media. So if you see the ads for 1-800-QUIT-NOW, or sometimes we run Kentucky specific ads, those are really incredibly effective, to the point where when we're looking at the reports that National Jewish gives us, we can tell when the ads are running just looking at the number of people who are calling from Kentucky. It is down to the day. We can tell when ads are running. Yeah. So sometimes ads seem like, I don't know, you might say like a boring outreach or something like that, but it works really well. So a question from one of our lung cancer screening partners is the type of messaging about lung cancer screening itself. Do they talk about how easy, quick, and non-invasive screening can be?
Yes. Yes. All that information. Yes, that is definitely something that they're talking about. It is, yeah, it is not as invasive as some people think. So we try to dispel a lot of those, myths that are out there, right? For lack of a better word, we do try to have that conversation with them, and certainly as they go to the site that we refer them to, and that's why I say, I highly encourage, go check it out. we try to give them that kind of information as well, so they can know that, yeah, nobody's going to be sticking a long needle down your throat to kind of get something out of you. So, it's not nearly that invasive. So yes, we do try to encourage them by educating them with that type of information.
Compared to some other types of cancer screening, this is easy peasy lemon squeezy.
Yeah.
Another question, do we know the percentage of cigarette smokers who are thinking about quitting but with no action taken? Which you might not know off the top of your head. I will have to look at our BRFIS data to get you that information, Gary. But the second question is, do your counselors use motivational interviewing?
They do. Yes, they do. That's part of their training, is they are trained on motivational interviewing techniques to again assist with that quit journey. But yes, that's a short answer. I felt like it should be more, but yeah, the answer is yes, they do motivational interview.
And I'll say, as part of that certified tobacco treatment specialist training, not only does it include backgrounds on things like addiction, it also does include that motivational interviewing component, so that when people go through that training, they very definitely get training on how to do that. This is, what is the best way to help promote the quit line? Do you want to answer that, or do you want me to answer that?
Oh, well, I think we could probably both answer. I think education. I think, getting it out there, getting the message out. It is, pretty anonymous. I mean, they don't have to engage. They can certainly check it out, but it's talking about it. I will tell you, every time, of course, right now is tips, right, where we have the CDC promoting it. Anytime we see ads on TV, we see that increase. And so every little time we can get the message out, the better. It is a free service. I don't think people realize it sometimes. And, they could be eligible for NRT, they might not, but it's like asking your mother to borrow the car on the weekend. It's like the worst thing they can say is say no, right? So yeah, so the message is key, is getting it out. And there's different programs. So if somebody's going through behavioral health concerns, or if they have a pregnancy program, if they're pregnant and I can't quit, the help is there. It's just getting again, I hate to say it, keep saying it, it's getting the message out so that they know it's there for them. And so that promotion is huge. But Elizabeth, I don't know if you have different thoughts, or
that was pretty much what I was going to say. The media is incredibly effective. If you are working with an organization, we do have some print materials that we can send out to your organizations. If you have waiting rooms, if you have rooms where patients are going to be in, if you're at the grocery store, maybe ask the grocery store first, but any of those locations are great. And I will say that the integration, the e-referral into electronic medical records is fantastic. And I know Dr. Gieske was St. Elizabeth's in Northern Kentucky. He was on a call a couple of weeks ago with one of our lung cancer groups, and he showed us what it looked like from his end as a provider. And it's basically like, just as your healthcare providers got to answer, a million questions. But as they're going through those million questions, there's a button that you hit and it just says, yes, basically refer this person to the quit line. And it is that easy on the providers end once we have that referral in place. Very last question, Dave, I promise.
No, it's okay. That's okay.
And it says, thank you, Dave. This is the most I have ever learned about Quit Now. It was impactful to hear your perspective as a National Jewish Health staff.
Well, thank you. I'll take that.
It is a great way to end. This has been fantastic. Thank you so much. Again, for those of you who have never been to our website before, I put the link in the chat so you can go click around on there, look around. There's lots of interesting information. If you liked this webinar, if you want to hear it again, you want to share it with any of your colleagues, I will be sending out a link to the recording. And if you have any questions that pop up in your head over the next couple of days, just go ahead and email me. And if I don't know the answer, then we'll just get in touch with Dave.
Absolutely. We're here for you.
So with that, thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful afternoon.